All right, let's get it. You're watching the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Hope all of the faithful is having a fantastic week. Here's what we're talking about on today's show. There's a report out there that there's a belief that the 49ers are going to keep Deebo Samuel and sign him to a contract extension. Albert Breer kind of broke down what those contract details will look like. We'll break that down as well. We're going to do a Dan Brugler NFL Mock Draft Roundup. I think he's one of the best draft analysts out there for The Athletic. But be smart and subscribe to the channel. By the end of the day, I'm going to get fired if we don't get to 58,000 subs. We are 47 people away. So if you want free daily videos covering all things Niners, hit that red subscribe button down below or go to youtube.com/49erstv. First up on the docket, Pro Football Network's Tony Pauline had a report out there that the belief is that the San Francisco 49ers are going to extend Deebo Samuel on that contract extension. And obviously right now it seems as though Deebo Samuel a little bit frustrated with the lack of contract talks and negotiations up to this point. But remember, with how the 49ers do business, they don't sign these players to contract extensions until training camp, and I believe that's when this will go down. So for Deebo Samuel, you just got to be patient. Tony Pauline, though, on the belief that Deebo will be a long-time Niner, he said this, quote, "We're told that Samuel, who is slated to make just under $4 million this year, will be looking for a contract in the range of about $25 million per year. Will that contract come from a team other than the Niners?" The belief in league circles as of April 12th is that the Niners will likely extend Deebo's contract rather than trade him. If Jimmy Garoppolo is traded from the team as expected, San Francisco would save about $25.5 million in salary cap and won't have a high-priced quarterback on the payroll. So obviously up to this point, it's been a pretty fascinating offseason for San Francisco on a variety of fronts, especially considering the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is still on this roster. The Jimmy Garoppolo contract situation has me bent for a multitude of reasons. It's prohibited the Niners from making a big splash in NFL free agency. It's also kept them from building for the future and signing guys like Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa, keeping some of your franchise pillars happy right now. The fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is still on this roster is baffling. They overplayed their hands when it came to a Garoppolo trade. They thought that they could get a lot more back for Garoppolo. They didn't envision all of the quarterback movement taking place in what has been a wild and historic NFL offseason. And in addition to that, what type of message does it send to Trey Lance that he might have to compete with Garoppolo in training camp? And what message does it send to Deebo Samuel when you're like, hey, Deebo, we'll pay you at some point. We messed up the Garoppolo contract situation and the Garoppolo trade. Let's just hope that the Niners don't do the same thing with Deebo Samuel, and then he gets disgruntled, and in the player empowerment era, he decides to force a trade. Now, when you take a look at the updated, highest paid wide receiver list, now that the Stefon Diggs contract has been made official, it just was really made official over the last couple of days, he vaults into the top 5 highest paid wide receivers. So Deebo Samuel wants to be on this list, with Tyreek Hill making $30 million in average annual value, Davante Adams trailing him by $2 million, DeAndre Hopkins north of 27, Stefon Diggs at 24 even, and DJ Moore coming in at $20+ million. I'll tell you this, Deebo Samuel looks at that list and he thinks that he can compete with some of the top wide receivers in the NFL, and the guys on that list, he's looking at DJ Moore making $20 million, and he's like, you know what? I'm a much better player than a guy like DJ Moore. I expect to get paid more, and that's why I've been saying all along, I think Deebo is going to be in the neighborhood of Stefon Diggs, right around $24 million per year, maybe even 25 as well, and I think Deebo Samuel and his agent, when they go to the negotiating table, they're going to ask for something in that range. So we just broke down and looked at that list of the top 5 highest paid wide receivers in the National Football League. I want to hear from you, faithful, in the comment section right now. And sound off, let me know. Should Deebo be a bag man or not with the Niners? Does he belong on that list? Give me a Y for yes, he does. Give me an N for no, he doesn't. That'll be the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get hit with that YouTube ad break, just scroll on down and get your votes in. In just a few moments, we will take a look at those Deebo contract details reported on by Albert Breer. But first, Let's take a look at how Deebo and Tyreek Hill compare, because if Deebo wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL and the highest paid player on the Niners, he would be competing on an average annual value basis with the cheetah in Tyreek Hill. Now, Hill last year, more receptions, 111 to 1,200 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns, only 96 rushing yards, average yards per rush at a little south of 11 yards. For Deebo Samuel, less catches, more yards though from a receiving department perspective, 3 less touchdowns, more rushing yards, and it wasn't even close because of his usage as a running back in Kyle Shanahan's offense, average yards per carry with a lot more touches, a little more than 6. So that's pretty fascinating on a couple of fronts, because Deebo looks at what Tyreek Hill is getting paid now by the Miami Dolphins after he was traded to Mike McDaniel's squad, and Deebo's probably like, you know what, I'm not taking anything less than $25 million, and it must be between 25 and 30. Otherwise, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, Parag, Adam Peters, the entire front office, Yorks, I ain't signing that contract. I'm holding out, and you better find a way to either give me that money or find a way to trade me if you're not willing to pay me $25 to $30 million. This is what the value is nowadays for top-tier wide receivers in the NFL, and it's understandable to see why Deebo is centering in on that dollar figure. Among those two players, Deebo, the Yak King, Tyreek Hill, the Cheetah, who's the better wide receiver? Embrace debate and maybe go after one another in the comment section, nicely of course. But who's better? Type D for Deebo, T for Tyreek Hill. Once again, I want to hear from you in the comment section. 49ers Report is available on YouTube. We are also available on Rumble. Couple cool things about Rumble. You can watch the 49ers Report while the app is closed. You have to pay for that feature on YouTube. Kind of treat it like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Apple Music, where you can put your phone in the pocket and let that video roll to hear my glorious pipes. Exclusive content that's only on Rumble, as well as live shows that are only on Rumble. That's what we're doing on the Rumble side of things, and free and uncensored content. So I can curse as much as I want and go off on the fact that Garoppolo is still on this roster and let a few curse words fly. So go to rumble.com/49erstv and give us a follow on the Rumble app. Also, Battle of the Bay, right now, it ain't much of a battle between the Raiders and the 49ers, but San Francisco stayed in the Bay. That's why the hashtag is FTTB, because San Francisco, San Francisco, is faithful to the Bay, whereas the Raiders, they left to go to Las Vegas. We have a lot of work to do, though, to catch up to the Raiders Report in terms of followers on Rumble. They're crushing us, guys. I want to see you show up and show out. Give us a follow. Let's catch the Raiders Report and prove to them that San Francisco, the much better franchise than the fraudulent Raiders. All right, we continue to move forward on today's show with what Albert Breer had to say about Deebo, that contract, and maybe the specifics in terms of the money that he will get. Breer saying this: so to me, the middle ground here might be the Niners giving on upfront cash, so maybe you'll see a 5-year extension covering 6 years that has $75 million or so packed into its first 3 years with smaller numbers on the back end. My guess is Samuel will shoot for more than that. While that might be too rich for the Niners initially, maybe there will be some middle ground. Whether it's attainable based on where the negotiation is, I don't know. I'd figure in the interim, John Lynch will get calls on Samuel's availability, and he's shown no fear in dealing off young stars in the midst of a contract negotiation before. You take a look at the players who he's dealt during contract negotiations: DeForest Buckner, Albert Breer said, and then especially when there's another one to take care of simultaneously, Eric Armstead then and Nick Bosa now. But I think a real effort to do a new contract will happen before then. So for a lot of you who are panicking out there about Deebo's long-term future with San Francisco, you now have Tony Pauline saying that he thinks the contract is going to get done, and Albert Breer, who's tapped in with all 32 organizations across the league, saying that he thinks a Deebo Samuel contract will get done. I'll also say this about all of these record-breaking contracts that we've seen so far this NFL offseason. I think they've been beneficial for the player as well as the team. We are seeing record-breaking contracts throughout free agency and with these contract extensions. And while the average annual value is higher, so too is the guaranteed money. The years on these contracts are a little bit shorter. So the players are getting more money up front with guaranteed money and more money per year, but there's flexibility for the team on the back end if these contracts don't work out, because there are outs in these contracts and a lot of that money is coming up front as compared to them being backloaded. You can backload those contracts for sure to free yourselves up with some flexibility in case an injury happens or the production isn't there, but that's kind of what we've seen in terms of the trend of the contracts this year during the NFL offseason. So for San Francisco, let's say they give Deebo Samuel $25 to $30 million per year. The guaranteed money might be there, but then you're able to free yourselves of some of those financial constraints on the back end of that deal, which is team-friendly on that side, but for the player, more guaranteed money and more money per year certainly helps out the athlete in the NFL, which we know stands for not for long. If you want Deebo to be a lifetime Niner, you don't want him to go to another team. You want to see him rocking the scarlet, red, and gold forever. Forever. Then hit that thumbs up icon and like the video, because this guy is a special, special talent, and he deserves to be in the Bay, and we already know he can flourish in Kyle Shanahan's offense as long as he can stay healthy. Lastly on the show, we're going to do a San Francisco 49ers mock draft, and I understand that a lot of fans are kind of frustrated and they don't have a lot of interest in the Niners draft this year because they don't have a first-round pick. But look, 9 selections, which means we could see 9 new players coming to the Bay to be a part of the Niners. Dan Brugler, I think he's one of the best NFL draft experts out there, just released his most recent mock draft. Here's who he has pitted to San Francisco with those 9 picks. And like my mock draft the other day, go check it out, it's available on the channel, all 7 rounds, all 9 selections, all of the picks come at different positions of need. He started off round 2, pick 61, with Josh Paschal, the edge rusher out of Kentucky, Cole Strange, offensive guard and center out of Chattanooga, going to the Niners in round 3, pick 93. That could be an interchangeable guard and maybe a future Alex Mack replacement, which I like. Marcus Jones, more depth at corner. Really good player out of Houston, going to the Niners in round 3, pick 105. They go wide receiver with a really intriguing prospect in Bo Melton out of Rutgers in round 4, 134 overall. I really like the value pick of Jesse Luketa, linebacker edge combo, round 5, 172. This guy can play, and Penn State's done a great job of developing pro prospects under James Franklin over time. Then the last 4 selections to round out Brugler's mock: Jerome Ford, running back out of Cincinnati, round 6, 187. In my mock, I went Kennedy Brooks, the running back out of Oklahoma, who had the game-winning touchdown in the Red River rivalry against Texas this past year. Micah McFadden, linebacker depth, maybe some special teams help out of Indiana, going to the Niners in round 6 as well. So too is Zachary Thomas, offensive lineman out of San Diego State. San Diego State, the Aztecs were balling this past year under Brady Hoke as he found his footing after a failed stint with the Michigan Wolverines. What's good, James Yoder? And then Zion Gilbert, cornerback out of Florida Atlantic, Mr. Irrelevant, round 7, 262, another corner going to the Bay. Now that's Brugler's mock. I released my mock earlier on in the week. You can give me your mock draft selections in the comment section and name me your favorite NFL draft prospect who you want the Niners to target. Give me a name or names in the comment section. Appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. And don't forget to subscribe, because if we don't get the 58K by the end of the day, I'm gone.